teacher bragged about weaving sex ed lessons in math class. She called it social justice math. Okay? Send your kids to learn the 1, 2, 3s, and they come learning all sorts of gender theory and all sorts of other things. Bottom line, kids are being indoctrinated, and parents are really upset. We're looking for help. Some other things that have happened. Bill 77, I'm going to go through Ontario-focused things. Bill 77, this is from 2015. It's called the Gender Affirming Act. Parents in this province, since 2015, are not allowed to access mental health therapy for their child who is gender dysphoric. Gender dysphoria means they have confusion over their gender. And these things exist. Like, children sometimes don't feel comfortable. They're like, I don't know, maybe I was born in the wrong body, maybe God made me the wrong sex. Those are conversations that should be had between a child and their parent. And I always tell people, just because your child comes up with an idea one day, and have a discussion, but just because they say something one day does not mean it needs to be turned into a life-altering event, which is, if you put them on hormonal therapy, can very well leave them sterilized for life. There are some very strong concerns about this. So if you have a parent with gender dysphoria, you know, like most parents would say, okay, well, let's go talk to a therapist. This is different, I don't know about this, let's go see a therapist. Not anymore. There is no therapist in Ontario who's allowed to even question a child's demand for sex change, or the therapist will be breaking the law. There's only one path, and that's to conversion. The child has a right, and there's no safety net or second check for children. Parents are completely cut out of the equation. The federal government, in 2022, their law passed, they finally followed suit. Don't worry, Ontario was 7 years ahead of that. And so Bill C4 became law in 2022, and that makes providing, promoting, or advertising conversion therapy, which is, I guess, a euphemism for persons who may struggle with certain sexualities or addictions, they want to talk to someone, they're called change therapy. It makes it a criminal offense. This bill defines any conversion therapy as a practice, treatment, or service designed to change a person's sexual orientation to heterosexual, or to change a person's gender identity to cisgender. Cisgender means your gender that matches your biological sex. So what this means, though, is you can go to therapy as long as you're willing to change your gender, but it's illegal to go to therapy where you're going to keep your current gender. Does it make sense? Madness. Right, it doesn't make sense, but exactly. Bill 28, this was introduced in 2016. Do you know what 2 very dirty words are in Ontario? I'm going to be very bad here. I'm going to tell you 2 dirty words in Ontario. Ready? Mother, father. Bad words. 2016, the then government introduced a bill which redefined the family. They removed this bill, which passed, removed the words mother and father from Ontario law, while allowing people to become parents through preconception parentage agreements with up to 4 unrelated unmarried adults. Children in Ontario have become commodities. Who's seen The Sound of Freedom? Right here. Right? We can see what happens when we commodify people, in this case, commodify children. Bill 89 in Ontario. This is the last one we're going to talk about, Ontario. It's a legislation introduced into 2017. It's called Bill 89. It amends the act which governs how, why, and when child protection services are engaged and how they interact with the courts and the agencies, you know, when a child's in trouble. Gender identity is now a consideration when deciding when to intervene for child welfare. And what does that mean? So say you have a 6-year-old who comes home from school and decides they want, okay, so actually let me give you a quote from the Minister of Child Friendly Services at the time. He said, "I would consider it a form of abuse when a child identifies one way and a caregiver saying, no, you need to do this differently. If it's abuse, and if it's within the definition, a child can be removed from that environment and placed into protection where the abuse stops." And that has happened in Ontario. Children have been removed from their homes because a parent has not facilitated their gender transitions. They're not continuing with their gender change, whether it's expression, their pronouns, or whatever. The state agencies can take away your child. If your 6-year-old says, "Mom, I want to wear a boy, maybe I want to wear a dress, and I want you to call me Stacy from now on," you know, maybe access therapies, hormone therapies, I don't know if they're a little older. And if you say no, child services could take away the child. If the child mentions it to a teacher at school, teachers have a duty to report. That's abuse. According to that minister, that's abuse. School surveys. heard of these school surveys? Did you know that the school boards surveyed children in school, usually without parental consent, and during school hours? Well, the Waterloo, to use an example, the Waterloo Region Catholic School Board. They asked students, these are children, okay? It says, gender identity refers to a person's internal sense of being man, woman, or boy. Or it could be neither, or anywhere on the gender spectrum, which may or may not be the same as your biological sex. So they asked the children, again, Catholic School Board, do you identify as a female, male, or another? And you can answer, I feel like neither female or male, or I'm both female or male at the same time, I am gender fluid, or I feel another way. I'm not sure, I would probably answer this one, I do not understand the question, or I prefer not to answer. Otherwise, you can answer lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender male, transgender female, queer, questioning, two-spirited, intersex, agender, asexual, or fill in the blank, put in another. Catholic School Board. That's the state of the Catholic schools. That's the state of Ontario schools. And it's not just the school boards. This is directives from the provincial government to the schools. There's a lot of dumping on the school boards are there making these radical motions. Don't get me wrong, trustees have to be held into account. But these are policy directives from the provincial government, from the Ministry of Education. Another thing that's going on is there seems to be an attack on manhood. I remember at the UN, I would attend conferences on women's rights. And you get some real interesting characters. This is like 20 years ago. I mean, it's become more mainstream now, but man, there's some crazy concepts. One time I had to sit through a video session on deconstructing masculinity. It's like 20 years ago. Now it's normal, but back then it was like, what the heck is this? Where crazy things that were being discussed. I was like, what is this world coming to? But the radical Marxist left-wing activists are on a mission to honestly destroy the traditional family. And what better way to do it than to take out the male figure? Around 25% of American children, which is around 18 million of them, grow up without a father or a father figure in the home. Children who grow up in absent fathers can suffer lasting damage. We know that. There's statistics galore. Left, right wing, we all agree. They're more likely to end up in poverty, drop out of school, become addicted to drugs, have a child out of wedlock, or end up in prison. Blessed Michael McGivney saw the need, right, to develop a brotherhood, manhood, a word which has become taboo in our society. So the Knights of Columbus have a very, very important role to play in leading the young man. And I'm not one to issue challenges, but I really challenge you to find a path forward, because there are a lot of young men who are struggling and looking for an identity, and looking for a path, and looking for mentorship. And I really feel the Knights of Columbus could really be that step to mentoring these young men who feel lost in this world where they may be threatened or feel unwelcome. We see with Dr. Jordan Peterson how these young men are really gravitating to his message. He's filling a void. I think the Knights of Columbus can fill that void. So why should we care? I always say that, so what? Okay, fine, kids are being indoctrinated in schools. My kids are homeschooled, doesn't bother me. There's a lot of whatever, maybe the rainbow's upset you or this pride season or whatever. It doesn't bother me. I live in 100 acres. I don't see anyone. It doesn't bother me. Why should I care? It's not my problem. We care because we are our brother's keeper. Pope John Paul II, Saint Pope John Paul II, frequently spoke of this moral principle of solidarity. We are our brother's keeper, our brother's burdens are our own, and all men are our brothers.